I don't know, what's like a normal speedometer now?
Welcome to the Tuck Shop Podcast. David's practicing IT security. You've had a week already, haven't you, my friend?
You know, when they say your password's going to expire.
You should believe them.
Yeah, because expire is one of those, like, when people die, they expire. It's not like it's getting old and faded. Like, when it's done.
My favorite is that you originally ran this by me as it probably is just spam. I shouldn't worry about it.
It seemed very spammy.
It did.
Like, it just seemed like alert. You know what I mean? Like, so I ignored it until this morning when I could or until Monday morning when I could no longer ignore it any longer.
I did that once.
Yeah,
It cost me my liver.
Well, this wasn't so bad. I made it a little bit better.
Let's see how often you have to try to dig it out, your password. It may be worse.
I had to write it. This one I had to write down. Because it went from like...
We're not going to tell people that.
No. But I mean, shouldn't. But it went from the simple, what was it, like 6 letters and a number to 15 to 30.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Good tip for the IT folks out there, I'll give you. I teach this to my students is a sentence tends to cover all those things.
That's true.
I didn't think super easy to remember a
sentence.
sentence.
I didn't think of that. I did not think of that. I should have thought of that.
I live at 107 Maple Street or whatever.
Yeah,
There's
but
a
I think
full sentence that
yeah.
you can remember that typically covers letters, numbers.
But you got to put
punctuation.
you can put punctuation. That's right.
If you have a grammatically correct
yeah,
sentence, it should have punctuation.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm no English major, but
I should have thought of that.
Actually, in theory, you should know that because you're a journalist.
Yeah, but I didn't put it. Yeah, you're right. But I didn't think. I didn't think the IT thing, which
tip of the day,
would have saved me a lot
freebie.
of time and a lot of anguish trying to come up with something that I could remember that had 15 to 30 characters and or letters and words in it or numbers in it.
There you go.
So, pretty serious about that stuff.
So this is a busy week.
It is. They're all busy, man.
Well, this
whole month has been busy.
This whole month's been busy, but this one's super busy. Between Fridays up 2 days from now, I got the human trafficking conference again. We're against, and the engineering event, the steel bridge and concrete
the
for new stuff.
Yep, it's coming up.
So all that stuff is things that we're participating in. Actually, I have some stuff for you once we're off air because we have to figure out the schedule.
Sorry, schedule's expired.
Schedule's not here, man.
Schedule is expired from now on.
But all in all, you said the chemistry event was very nice.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone that came out. I'm sure Dr. Lincella Bell also did. It was very touching. It was the spring seminar, alumni seminar, coupled up with her retirement, and the obvious, like every one that was there, could directly correlate back to their success was that. And, we say it all the time. A university is a university, but it's the people that make the university.
Yeah.
And it was very apparent on Saturday that everyone that, was there, the presenters, those in attendance were able to say, you know what? And they were able to give examples of, it wasn't just I had you for class. It was, remember the day you told me this? Or do you remember when I asked for a letter of recommendation for grad school and you said yes if you do this? So there was a lot of nice stories where people were able to say there was a direct impact, not just, oh yeah, I had her for class. So those are the events in this business that you like to go to.
That's always really neat. I also think it's interesting because the first time I remember was last year you went, and we've heard it a couple times since where they were talking about how our grads leave and then they go to a lab or they go to a master's program or they go out to the job and they look around and they're like, why don't you people know what I know? Because we're so far. And that was again the first time we came across that. But I've had 4 or 5 instances talking to alums since then where they just like, I got out there in the world. Actually, I think a couple weeks ago, I think it was either Rich Reagan or Mark Bursick talked about the same thing unprompted, like, I got out there and I realized my education was so far ahead.
2 different disciplines. So it wasn't like, man, we really prepare good engineers or very well prepared engineers. No, this was the same thing. This is chemistry. This is communications. This is engineering. This is geology, geography, boom, 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 down the line where people feel that they got out of here surprisingly advanced
Yeah.
when they got into the work
And
world.
it's something that we see all the time.
Yep, absolutely.
So that's really cool. I'm glad that went well. Got a bunch of events coming up. I would be remiss because of just my own interest in some of the parts of the history to take a note to remember for anyone who's downloading and listening to this episode on the 15th. Typically, people would say tax season, but no. Also, April 15th in the morning is the morning that the Titanic sank in 1912.
Is it really?
It is.
There you go.
It is. So this in the early morning of April 15th, 1912 is when the Titanic sank. So
Well, I guess you always, well, maybe it's just me. I always thought it happened in the winter because they hit an iceberg.
well, it's the North Sea.
Yeah, but I always thought
Atlantic,
it had to be like in the winter sometime. Like they hit an iceberg.
But it's also tax day, so at some point I'll get my significant other back.
Yeah, it might be
finally.
like Titanic for some people.
Yeah, I don't think mine are done yet. So,
Yeah, so it
or
might
at least
be-
as of the recording. So,
Absolutely.
but it's not going to stop us
No.
from a whole bunch
Not
of
at
cool
all.
stuff we got going on. Again, we have the events this weekend. The one that is certainly the registration's passed for the anti-human trafficking conference, but we're still accepting people for Saturday.
Yeah, if they want to come by, we'll be there with alumni swag starting around 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. And then at 2 o'clock till 4 o'clock, there'll be a mixer. And you're supposed to register, but I'm sure we can fit a couple more in.
Yeah.
But I think even during the day, even if you don't want to stay for the mixer, again, I've been saying it all along, just come and hang out. If you're an engineer, if you're interested in engineering, if you're an alum and you want to see the Muslin building, a good bit of that will be accessible that day. So it's for engineers, it's extremely loose, which
Yeah. But that's
they don't
okay.
tend to be, huh?
I think the projects. I think. Let me calibrate you, David, here on this one, because I think they're very good with the flow of an event, which is good, which is nice, because trust me, I love this conference on Friday.
Okay.
But I told them the conference center and the folks I'm working with that if I for some reason end up with the veggie meal at lunch, I'm gonna lose it because it's very intense, which is good, but it's also very intense. But when it comes to the engineering stuff, you haven't been down in the building. I had to go down
not
for the live
since-
stream, which
we first
I'm
did that
providing.
walkthrough.
It's all taped off and measured out for
Good.
different. It looks like they're on that. So it's kinda cool.
Because you don't normally hear engineers say, I don't know, 2, 3, whatever. They're usually pretty. It's a 2 or a 3.
I think engineering is kind of like what they care about is super deep,
yeah.
and everything else is just kind of like
And Sunday, I want to mention Sunday at the Q. It's a Queen Mahoning Reservoir. They're going to be racing the concrete canoes. That again starts, I'm pretty sure, like 9
fairly
o'clock
early
in the morning,
because
goes till about 3 or 4 in the
it's a
afternoon.
day long thing.
So there's, gosh, I don't have the list in front of me. I mean, there's like 700 engineering students.
Yeah,
Multiple of
all
universities.
from all over the country.
Yeah.
and
There's going
it's
to
an
be
important deal.
some pretty. I think there's going to be. How do they say it, Matt? There's going to be some fender rubbing, maybe. No.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm thinking boats.
What do they do that?
A little swapping paint.
Swapping. So they're going to swap a little
Chrome horn. It was
swap-
Bristol this week, by the way.
Was-
So that's where you would think of that short
I
track
have
racing.
no idea. Swapping mortar on the
I'm
queue,
going
I
to need
guess.
you to watch a race at some point.
By
the way, and I'm just throwing out there, if you have any interest in this, you email David and I, let me know. We should do a summer night at Jennerstown.
You know where I want to go? Keystone.
Or Keystone.
Nobody wants to go to Keystone with me.
Okay. We'll go to Keystone.
Let's go to Keystone.
Okay.
It's like $15 to get in.
Yeah.
And they do like drag racing, right?
They do all kind of, yeah.
All kind of racing. No concrete canoe racing.
No
though.
concrete canoe, though.
Got to see that Sunday. What day? Sunday. Concrete canoe races on the queue.
Yeah, Keystone does
Yeah, it's
NHRA drag racing.
Yeah, it's open.
Yeah, Jennerstown does oval.
And I kind of thought, I think at Keystone you can take your own car and run it.
That one I'm not 100% sure.
No, I think so. Saturday I saw on that you had to have 3 requirements that I could understand was
Probably the safety seat stuff.
no.
Okay.
From what I can understand, it was windows up, seat belts on,
Okay. Well, there's safety stuff in there.
and long pants.
Okay.
I don't understand the long pants part, but
Well, there you go.
in case you crashed a minivan.
Your crappy little Ford out there could.
That's what I'm
see it
thinking. Like,
does.
how fast could it go? Like, could you get it to that one? I don't know. What's like a normal speedometer now?
110.
You think? I don't think they go up that far anymore.
Mine does. I'm
used to go to
what's on the
120.
Subaru. Yeah,
They used to go 120. Like,
Yeah.
but I think, I bet
Well,
you're
see,
right.
the problem is all it's digital now for many of the new cars.
That's true. Yeah, you can't see the little needle go up.
Don't see the
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, but it wouldn't be neat to go and see just how fast the family
car could
truckster
go.
could go. Just put it to the floor.
I think it'd be kind of cool, but maybe that's something we'd do. I bet Ed Sheets would come out.
That's what we do. Yeah, let's do
Yeah.
a Keystone night. Any other alum that wants to do a Keystone Raceway on 22? That sounds pretty cool. I drive by it all the time, and this is the year I said I'm going to go to
We're gonna go to
a couple of races. It's like $15.
I think Jefferstown too. We'll throw in.
I think it's $40 if you want to race your car.
Yeah.
Yeah, $40. I'll go to Jennerstown.
Racers 40, spectators 15, kids and under admitted free.
There you go.
So, anyway, that's completely beside the point.
That is very beside the
But
point.
just I'm thinking of things that we could do over the summer.
But
which
speaking
would be
of
fun.
sports, I'm going to tie this back in sports Hall of Fame banquet. Deadline for that is Friday, the 17th. So if you're coming up, if you got a table and it's not full yet, fill out registration. If not, call me directly if you need help. That is next Saturday. So not this
Saturday the
Yeah,
24th.
Saturday after Saturday.
No, 25th.
25th, 2-5.
25th.
Yep, Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Hall of Fame.
24th is the geography banquet.
There you go. Lots going on.
There's a lot going on.
Somewhere along
Plus
here, people
graduation,
graduate.
plus
Yeah.
alumni board meeting,
Yep.
plus all kind of
Plus
cool stuff.
admissions open house.
Yep, we had one on Monday.
Yeah. We
Very
got
good.
the student teaching showcase coming up.
Yeah, next week we're going to be at the student teaching showcase. So if you like those episodes, because a lot of people do, they're some of our most popular. Actually,
Yep.
hearing from the student teachers, we're going to be in real good shape.
And last thing I want to mention, alumni pub night at Roland's, the 30th Thursday, 5 to 7. That'll cost you nothing, but you got to RSVP.
Yeah.
I think we're at about 40 or so right now. So we got a
nice.
pretty decent group, but come on out. I mean, just come on out and hang out.
Yeah.
It'll be post-draft. The city will be back to normal, be able to move freely.
The amount of people going to this NFL draft,
700,000.
it just makes no sense to me.
It's amazing.
It's just like there's not even like just to hear the name.
I don't know if I've ever seen 700,000 of anything.
No,
700,000. That's what they're saying
Field
now.
hold 150.
What?
What does Heinz Field even hold? 150.
Something like that.
So you know,
So it's like,
5 times more than like a playoff, an AFC championship
Yeah,
game
yeah,
the
yeah.
Steelers are in.
Yeah.
Just to hear names get rattled off.
I know.
You know what though? Maybe they're booing Goodell.
I don't know. Maybe they're here for the pierogies.
I get it, but man, oh man,
Yeah.
NFL controls so much.
Wow. It is big.
Anyway, no, that'd be a good night. I'm excited for you all in Pittsburgh to have a good event, and we got some cool stuff going on here.
Yep.
So any of these events, anything that we have a registration for, which at this point only down in the link may actually only be the alumni board, because
The Rollins.
and the Rollins,
Yeah, the Rollins and
the
Hall
not
of
the alumni
Fame.
board, excuse me, the
Hall of Fame. Yeah, HOF.
same day.
Yeah. Yep.
Those two would be out there, but they're down below. They're in the description. Just ahead, give it a click and go ahead through it. Or if you don't see it, or if there's a question you have for one of us, anytime. Our email, contact for David, contact for me, right down there in the description of the podcast. Send us an email.
Yeah, I
Hey,
love to read
I-
emails. Love it.
Because we learn. Well, good example though. Some of the stuff that comes from your question of the week this week was
Yeah.
a user, a customer,
Correct.
alum submission,
Yeah, what would you call that? An alum.
submission of a
participant.
Hey, I'd like to see this.
Yeah, I'd like to see this
asked and
question,
what
and we
people
worded
say.
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, within reason. And same thing, we'll do,
guest on the show if you think your story's cool.
guest
we're,
on the show.
We're booking into the fall.
what do we call that? A Tuesday highlight for a business.
Yes, the business one.
A throwback Thursday. Again, if you have an appropriate photograph with some description to it, I'd love to use it. Same thing with the question. If you had a question you always wanted to know that's an appropriate question to be asked, I'd be happy to put it on the question of the week.
Yeah, anything. We like doing it. If you have a cool event going on, you're an alum, you're like, boy, hey, I'm running this nonprofit event, hey, my company's launching this new thing. That's what we want to talk about.
Help you out.
Give us a call. We're glad to help you, have you on the show. Like I said, we're booking.
Buy you a tuck dog, maybe. I don't know.
By the way,
what?
Can we talk? I texted you when you were off on Thursday.
Okay.
The Tuck Shop is now producing for the rest of the term Sundowners.
I did see that. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Got to get one of those.
Danny had one.
Get out.
The other day. Didn't know what it was, by the way.
Okay. Not from the area.
Got one. Loved it.
What are they calling it?
Sundowner.
They got to call it something else. They got to come up with a better name.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think it's a project.
Like
it's a project I love.
Tucker.
But
tuck downer.
So,
but not to say that I had enough of the dogs yet, though. I could eat.
Yeah.
I could say I could eat one every day, but I probably can't.
Some neat stuff across the board.
Yeah.
So anyway, anything you have like that, shoot David an email. Shoot me an email. We're glad to always talk to you and have it out there. Probably should put in, because it's only about 3 weeks left. 3 Wednesday shows left. 2 is alumni elections.
Yeah, they're gonna wrap up end of the month.
End of the month, we have a bunch of. I'm really thrilled about how many people.
We'll probably throw it out there again.
We'll put it out there.
Yeah,
no, I'm just saying. I may even put it in the link down below. But how many people who are on the show are actually on that ballot? It's really cool.
Tuck Shop party.
It is
the pod party.
So I was thinking, because we've got a lot of pieces moving on, but boy, this whole last couple of 10, 12 days has been dominated by really 2 news stories. I don't have any alum I can call in to talk about Iran at this point, but we do have an alum that we talked to very early in this show that worked on the Apollo program. And I thought it would be good for especially because our listenership is much, much bigger than it was at that point. It was very early in our process. Pulling back Don Freeburn's story and hear him in his own words talk about his journey from UPJ to the Apollo program and helping get the first generation of people to the moon, as we kind of now dawn on the second generation.
It's all very retro. Isn't it? Sort of, kind of?
Yeah.
I did have a stat for you. Okay. So how long were the Artemis astronauts on the other side of the moon?
Oh, I don't know this. I saw this stat. Because you
shared it.
This is the 43, whatever.
47 minutes, whatever 50 seconds.
It's the exact same time as Dark Side of the Moon.
Complete running time, yeah.
I don't know if that's true.
I don't know, but isn't it cool if it was? Look it up. Yeah, it's that. It's and I will break the misnomer that you can't play Wizard of Oz and Dark Side of the Moon at the same time. They don't sync.
Well, I'm looking.
Did you get a number?
Now. 42 minutes and 50 seconds.
Okay, that's how long?
That's the whole running time of the album.
All right, from front to back. It's not counting when you flip it over. You got to flip quick, unless it's on a CD.
Its CD would play the whole way through.
Yeah, unless you don't have to worry about flipping the CD. Doesn't work. So what do you got?
Now I'm checking on Artemis.
Should there be some suspenseful movie?
40 minutes.
Oh, really? Not even close.
No.
Who starts this stuff?
The internet, man.
Who needs it?
Yeah, about 40 minutes the astronauts will be alone.
So we just debunked that.
And that's from the BBC. So
well, there you go. You got to believe the British.
Well, no, actually, no. But that's a side discussion there. I won't get into. But point being is, I did see that, but it's still kind of cool.
Well,
and I don't see anything that kind of definitely does that.
Okay, all right.
I did like the idea though did one of them make sure that they were the farthest one in the capsule?
Oh, that's kind of
so they are the farthest one who was ever away from it
I'll leave you with really a cool fact, and it did really well.
Yeah, because we're off the rails.
I know, but was the USS John P. Murtha.
Yes, that's what made me think about this. Is
isn't that cool?
Murtha picked up those astronauts.
Yeah. So
Murtha was our longtime congressman in the area.
Yeah, and a big supporter of Pitt Johnstown. It just shows you how relevant people really are.
And an alum.
And an alum, yeah. And
as much as sometimes even in my professional career, back and forth with his office about different stuff. One thing I always gave Murtha credit for, even in the congressional baseball game, when everyone else was wearing their school, he made himself a UPJ jersey. It wasn't a generic Pitt. It was a UPJ jersey. That dude.
And he makes a good ship.
Yeah, that guy was.
So, yeah, that was kind of cool.
I don't think he had anything to do with building the ship.
He just had his name on it.
Yeah.
But it was kind of cool, I thought.
It was very neat. It was
and I did see that, actually.
Did you see what they did on the bridge of that when overlooking they got at least one, if not more, inflatable, like, aliens? So when the crew got out of the capsule, they looked up in the bridge, and it was just these little inflatable, like, you could get like a party store.
Say goodnight, Matt.
Let's go and listen to Don Freeburn's interview. Thanks, David.
Thank you, Matthew.
Okay, moving on to our guest. I've been so excited about getting this interview scheduled in. Don Freeburn, thank you for coming.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
What's your Pitt Johnstown story? What's your UPJ story? How did you start here?
How did I start? Well, not here, okay? It's back when it's the old asphalt campus. And actually, my twin brother and I attended early. We were still in high school, completing the last year in high school at Johnstown High. And my father talked, I guess, with the Pitt chancellor at that time, Johnstown chancellor, and they had a program, I guess, identified for early entry. I think there was about 5 or 6, I guess, students, 2 women, and my brother and I think there was a Air Force person, too, coming in back to school and stuff like that was available. And so we came in, I guess it was April, when the trimester system started. We were still in high school, and every teacher that we had, except one, the English teacher, said, hey, you're finished. Don't have to come back to any more classes. You're done. You got a good grade and everything else. Don't have to come back. But the English teacher, Miss Varner, and everybody knew her for hundreds of years, okay? I had older sisters and stepbrothers and stuff like that who had her and that, and every time you went to her class, she said, oh, another Freeburn. But she went back even more than that. But she was notoriously good, though. Very good English teacher. And, of course, my brother and I were both in the honors level of academic at Johnstown, so we were in there with all the rest of the bright students, particularly English class of the women. They could gabble, without no notes or anything else like that, whereas I would be back there saying, hope the period ends before I could give my speech. And but that summer we came and went for the first, we had no engineering classes. We couldn't start anything until the fall. So we had all the tough teachers in the social classes, Miss Reiser, Dr. Reiser, I guess, Dr. Sheep, and who else? The great one was Mr. Crow. He worked at the newspaper, but he was teaching speech. And you gave a speech every class. Every class you had a speech, 5-minute speech, 2-minute speech. You had to prepare them, different subjects. He didn't want to hear the same thing over and over again from all the students. So you had to do little investigations and everything else like that. But trying to give them every day, every period, that got you out of the willies and that. Even though you're in a brand new class with everybody else, you just got up and gave them. And by the time you're finished with the class, you're okay speaker, didn't worry too much, knew you had to prepare, but it was great. Dr. Reiser, she was trying to teach us how to think for ourselves. And I said, I guess, in my little article back to the alumni request, what has Pitt done for you? Yeah. I said, she's the first one that I had as a professor or a teacher that really says, hey, I want you to start thinking. Just don't look at the book and memorize. I want you to think about one step further. And I'm going to be quizzing you on those things. And she did. And we failed. My brother and I both failed. we both came back, okay, in a special class, and she says, okay, now I told you in class, but this is what I really meant. And it took a while, but we finally, we're really taught, okay, hey, start thinking about what you're reading in that. Not just what was in the book, but do some reasoning in your mind. There's pros and cons and everything else, and you have to know some of those, not just what's in the book. But like I said, that first term during the summertime was really tough. We also had to take algebra. And I was acing the course and then got sick the last week and failed the final.
Oh.
I know the professor said, Don, what happened to you? I said, I was sick. But I had aced algebra all through high school and everything else, but I was so sick and everything else. But made it through that, and then the next fall got right into engineering with two of the greatest professors that I ever had, Dr. Saylor and George Peck. Between the two of them, they taught us all our engineering courses in Pitt, Johnstown. And once we got to main campus, as I mentioned too in my little article, that we were ready. We were ready up to snuff for the rest of the professors down at the main campus and that. We didn't have to drop back and have more studies or anything else. We were ready for it.
What drew you to engineering?
Engineering, a couple different things I think I identified. Science fiction was taking hold in the 50s. Some movies and everything else like that on TV, and TV had also the, I guess, the Victory at Sea program. Black and white, all of the war films from Germany and particularly the Pacific, where they had the aircraft carriers. Mm-hmm. And all those aircraft looked just fantastic to me. And I didn't want to fly because I got car sick, okay? I knew I'd get air sick whenever I flew, okay? And sure enough, I did first time I ever flew. But no, I liked the, very progressive, designs and things like that, and says, hey, that's fantastic. And I had an aeronautical teacher in high school. We had aeronautics, and he was a P-51, which was one of the great, aircrafts, fighter aircrafts in the Second World War in Germany, particularly. And he was of the Mennonite faith. And essentially, he would not talk about his service in that because that was against his faith. He had gone against his family in that. Mm-hmm. But I knew he was an ace. We found out, that he had been an ace and everything else like that. But he taught a very good course in aeronautics in that. And at that time, that was what I really wanted to do. I said it in 5th grade the first time when the teacher says, what do you want to do in your life? Everybody's saying I guess the women are saying, just like my high school yearbooks, they're either going to be a nurse or they're going to be a secretary. And some are going to be key punchers by that time, too. But then all the men were there saying, well, I'm going to be a laborer, I'm going to be in a steel mill and things like that. In my course back there in, I guess, 5th grade, I guess some of the guys wanted to be scientists. My brother and I both wanted to be engineers. He said chemical engineer. But I was there with the aircraft and that. I said aeronautical engineering. So later on I became an aerospace engineer. But sure. I really had aeronautical engineering throughout the whole coursework and I had. So what did I end up doing? Flying some vehicles that had no air around them. Vacuum of space.
Well, I was going to get to that. Why don't we then explain to the folks who haven't had the pleasure of having a lunch with you like I have, what did you do with your engineering degree that people may have heard about?
Well, what did I do, or how did I get there first?
Let's say where you went.
Where I went.
And then how did you get there?
Okay. First job was with NASA Houston. This was January. I got a telegram saying, are you available? I said, definitely yes. And within a month, I was hired in February of 1965. And that was a big time at that spot because they were ramping up with hirings. And I went to NASA, and I was into a division of propulsion and power, which includes everything on the Apollo spacecrafts, both the lunar modules, the two vehicles, the upper stage, lower stage, and also the surface propulsion system, which was a vehicle that essentially boosted them mid-course corrections to the moon, braked them going into orbit, took them back out of orbit, back to the Earth, and any other mid-course corrections. Of course, the lunar modules took them down to the surface, and the other top part of it took them up back to rendezvous with the surface propulsion system and bring them back home. So my office had responsibility for all of those three propulsion systems. Very similar systems, but to me they weren't, because I never had rocket engineering at Pitt. I had aviation in that, aircraft, boundary flow, etc., but not a spacecraft flying in the vacuum of space or landing in the vacuum of space.
Wasn't an optional class you could take in how to get to the moon?
Not on the agenda.
So how did you, like you were kind of alluding to, how did you find that opportunity?
How did I find that opportunity?
What led you to get that telegram?
It was basically the counselor at Pitt. It was he was the one responsible for bringing everyone in to interview for jobs. And at that time, it was the Cold War. That was really the Cold War, okay? And so there was a lot of defense jobs, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and NASA got started in 1958. And they were trying to figure out where they were going to. They're supposed to be told in 1962 by Kennedy, you're going to get to the moon before the end of the decade and come back safely with some rocks, hopefully. And but again, he says, hey, you'll get there by 1969, which we did twice, actually, before the end of 1969. But to answer the question, how did I get the job? I interviewed every major aerospace company because they had a good job of bringing in the representatives and had interviews. And we had a tough time with classes and everything else trying to stage them around our classes and that. So I interviewed probably over 20 different companies that had come in, but the major ones, Boeing and McDonald, everybody. And I started, that was really the last term in September, October, November, and then came December, and I was getting letters back saying, thank you for the interview. We're going to put your letter in file in case we need it. And we knew what that file was. That was a round file.
Yeah.
And other firms didn't even send me a letter back. I went to the counselor towards, I guess, the start of December, and he said, Don, you should have told me you're a diabetic. Why didn't you, okay? Because they're not going to hire you. You're a type 1 diabetic. I learned that in my first year of college in 1962. I'm on insulin. They said, they think you're going to die within the first couple of years, so they're not going to pick you up. He said, I recommend that you try to apply for a government job. I have a 2-inch here booklet. You can take that back with you. Here's some 6-page forms. You can use the typewriter. You know how to use a typewriter, don't you? Yes, right. I did, because I had a class when I was in 7th grade, and I had a class that my dad sent us to, which was the greatest thing we had back then, because my grades in English and other reports and that were probably 1 grade higher, because the teacher could read and that, and I had to read it too to make sure I didn't make any mistakes, so it was really proof checking. But sent out all the forms within the first couple of weeks, or the last couple of weeks of December. And the first week in January, I received a telegram at home saying, are you available? And sure enough, they had a program that Kennedy had sponsored, John Kennedy, trying to hire the handicap in the government as a model for industry. And it was a different type of program at that time than today, because it had actually, today's program is goals. If you don't make your goal, well, y'all do better next year. They had actual quotas. Mm-hmm. They had 2 lists, one the regular list, the other the handicap list. And the supervisor didn't know whether or not if he was going to hire from one or the other until they said, you have to take it from the other list, the disability list. And that's what I got. My name came up, and They chose me out of the packages that were there. But again, this was a high time of hiring that because they needed people in the aerospace industry.
So you're sitting in Texas, working on this program.
Learning the whole program, okay? I went in there, didn't know anything about Apollo. I didn't know where Houston was. I knew it was in Texas because I rooted for the Houston Texans, or Houston Oilers, I guess, back then. But I didn't know if it was going to be on the coast, inland, or what, okay? And Texas is a big place.
Yes.
And the first plane flight out of Pittsburgh down to Houston, and, I got sick. I knew I was going to get sick. I had Dramamine, but I still got sick. And but I got there, and first thing was here, your big room, probably about the twice of your room right here, with about 8 engineers in a desk to desk to desk. No computers. We all had our slide rules on our desks, all right, because that's the thing we use to calculate anything. The big problem was that they didn't have enough mimeograph machines, enough copiers and that, because everyone wanted data, and you needed to have data to understand things.
Sure.
So I know that was a big problem. You couldn't take things home. Things were classified. And so you had to stay in your office and everything and read and then lock them up too. And they had guards roaming out, okay? You didn't take anything that had classified. You left your safe open, they came after you, and you came right back in.
Was after the initial hiring process, where were the first couple of days, hey, new job kind of stuff?
The first couple months was learning. You went to classes about the spacecraft themselves, and then learned about the system, the management, and everything else. And this was a very big hierarchical thing, okay, management. And also different compartments and everything else, who you shouldn't talk to. There was a little bit about, it was almost like the military. You don't talk to these people because they're above your grade. Don't talk about this, which was terrible for communications then.
Yeah.
And, but again, most of the time was learning, okay? They didn't want you to be working on anything, okay, that they weren't going to approve by 2 or 3 layers.
What was that? And I guess my question kind of goes along the lines of, during that time, during those initial years, was there a sense that it was going to be such a historical point, not just for aeronautic and space, but also just for the planet as a whole? Or was it like anything else? It just becomes a job.
It really became a job.
Just
okay,
like,
to me,
it's Thursday, man. I can't wait till Friday.
I thought back on that too. When I was writing that one article, and no, we were here. We knew what the mission was: get there by the end of the decade, and but how? I wasn't privy to all the big schedules. They were about 3 layers up from me in another office, and that where you had all the schedules for all systems and everything else. They had to work together, not only at Johnson Spacecraft Center, but Marshall had the assignment of the big booster, the Saturn boosters, and that 2 or 3 of them there. And so, you didn't get the big picture. Again, there was a lack of data. We didn't have faxes. Nobody had faxes, okay, at the time, but then they later got those. Copiers and that you couldn't use unless you had a reason for that. So it's really hard to see the whole picture and everything else as a person my level in that, entry level. I had a number of other people in the office who already had 10, maybe 15 years experience with the Army, Navy, and stuff like that, where they pulled them out first as engineers and that. So they had run through some of these programs, running through with the contractor schedules and everything else like that. Of course, the contractors are off-site, and you had to go out to California or down to the Cape or up to New York, Bethpage, Grumman, where they were building the spacecraft. First year, you didn't get to go anywhere, all right? So you didn't learn, you didn't talk to contractors unless they came by, and usually you weren't the one talking to them. So the first one was just learning the whole system.
You've talked about education, even beyond just learning the system. What was through the years, because how long did you end up then working for NASA?
I worked 13 years for NASA. Apollo program, the Apollo Skylab program, 3 missions there with the Apollo Service Propulsion System. the one mission with the Soviets, joining up with the Soviet vehicle, shaking hands, going back. Yeah. And then the last one was with the space shuttle. And I left before 2 years before the space shuttle flew the first time. But I got there to work the early elementary level designs of the space shuttle, and they had all kind of configurations, thinking they had all the money in the world. But they finally found out that nobody cared after we went to the moon a couple of times. The budgets just started decreasing. And I saw, well, time to move on, next thing, because I was into the program. I saw the new development and everything else up to the point before they flew. So I'd been through one cycle already, contractor-wise, everything else like that. And my wife wanted to come back. She's from Patton, where we live now, and wanted to come back closer to the families up here, my family and her family. And it took me a number of years. Again, money got out of different programs, and the only program that really started was the energy program, and that was in about 78 time frame.
What did you do with continuing education as far as an engineering perspective? Like, what did they
I
have
tried
you
to go back for a master's with when I was going to school there. I mean, going to work, and went to the University of Houston and that, and learned that my algebra skills and my trigonometry skills, all those things met their match for this abstract math, okay, that was taught, okay? It's, to me, it's still abstract, okay? And between that, I started to go on the road to travel to contractors and that, and to try to do studies and everything else. You couldn't come back for class, everything else like that. Just didn't match up. And I said, okay. And most of the people that were engineers, I only knew of one or two doctors, okay? Mm-hmm. The others were few masters, but the rest of them are just your basic bachelor's degrees and that, and a lot of experience.
I guess the experience, because really when you do think about it, what class are you going to go to that helps you? We still don't offer a class here in the curriculum that is very vast here at UPJ, but doesn't include anything how to land on the moon.
The individuals who had co-op, though, came in and co-op in our office and that, went back to school for a term or two, and then came back in for another co-op session and that. I think they had the good practical experience, and that's the way for that type of program and everything else. If you get some practical experience, what are they really doing out there? And go back and do your studies and everything else and learn how it's applied in that, and come back again, back and forth. It took them a year longer, 2 years longer in that to get their degrees in that, but they were more rounded, okay, and they'd already started, so they moved up faster.
That's one of the questions I like asking when we do these interviews is if you could go down now and grab a group of students someplace and tell them, this is the thing that be a difference.
At least one term, if not two, at least 2 terms or something like that with an industry. Do a variety of industries or something like that, and understand, where's it going to be, used. Because most of the stuff you learn, you don't use. And then you have to, learn by practical experience or go, review, science and everything. One thing, I didn't have enough science, okay? I realized that, about the second or third year, and everybody was talking about this and that material and that kind of stuff. And I had one material, metallurgical course. It didn't really apply to the stuff that I was doing, so.
Makes sense. Did you ever lose that interest in the space program? You talked about what you decided to move on from a family standpoint.
I lost it because it wasn't because when I went to energy department at Morgantown. It was clean coal program, just started because of the energy crunch, the gas lines, and we were trying to figure out various ways of getting independence in energy. Again, we didn't have the solar was very high priced. Wind energy wasn't up and running. Nuclear was running along there. That's okay. Fossil energy, putting out a lot of gases, which they could do, okay, because there was no climate warning or anything else like that. Natural gas was, no, you couldn't drill anymore because we didn't think we had enough. We didn't have the techniques to do that yet. Fracturing and horizontal pipes and something like that, mining. And we really had an energy crunch. It was oil and coal. So big program on coal, change coal into liquids, okay, gas and fuels. And the center director told me at Morgantown, he said, I didn't pick you because you knew anything about coal. You came from the Space Department, okay? But you know contracting, and we had $2 million last year, and this year we're going to have $200 million come in the door, and we got to get it out on time. So that's why I picked you, because you had contracting skills with the government. So I didn't get hired because engineering skills, space skills, but basically because I knew contracting. The next job 6 years later, I got hired because I knew fossil energy, being 6 years into fossil energy. So those are kind of, unique things you say, look back on and say, well, as an engineer, how did I get hired? I've sent out a number of, interviews for interviews and everything else, but
kind of can see how they string
together. They weren't the thing. So
yeah, when what is when you see the stuff that occurs today because I think, and I as a space fan myself, seeing that downturn when you talk about the money getting pulled out, and when I remember the day they said that we're not going to do space shuttle anymore, and it's like,
right,
what? We do seem now to see this resurgence of interest in space.
There has been for a couple of years because they promoted the Artemis program, the next coming back to the moon, okay, with astronauts. And they're faltering right now. They just pushed the schedules back one more year. One more year.
Did they give you a call yet?
No. I don't want to go in there, okay? No. They have to solve the program. They'll have problems there, okay? And big problem is money. And because we're in a budget crunch now with, you saw Congress and that, they can't even decide on this year's budget was supposed to be done back in October. Mm-hmm. And we're skipping it one month to the next, okay? But that's the kind of thing you get be very wary of, because even when I worked for Morgantown, we had a change in administrations, and Reagan came in, and he said, no more coal. We're just going to drill. And he said, no more coal. Senator Byrd from West Virginia said, mm-hmm. I'm appropriations chair, and I tell you what to do. We're going to have a $500 million budget for coal. And he won out. But Reagan won out in the headquarters offices because he had a rift going on in fossil energy for administrative and that. But Senator Byrd, he knew how to run the program and stuff like that. So I said, you got a floor here in your building there. You're not going to go hiring below that, okay? So I was in and stayed in there for 6 years until things started getting free again in the budgets. And energy was, hey, we're going to pursue all these types of energy.
Do you have optimism about what they're doing, even with the budget problems and so forth, with what we see with Artemis, what we see with SpaceX? I have some
pessimism on the side of why do we do human flight, okay? When the objectives there are saying that we can go to the moon and get what resource? Everybody says, oh, well, there's ice there, which we can break down into water, into hydrogen for fuel, and we can use it other ways too. And I said, so what? Is there an element there that we can use in photovoltaics or something, some mineral or something like that? Even that would be costly to get. These boosters are now costing over $100 million, if not more than that, just to fly a unmanned vehicle to the moon. And what are we doing that for? It's really for the science. You do the science first, and maybe you do a little bit of the astronauts too, because again, you got to understand our bodies in space. We already know from a year-long stay on our space station and that there's problems out there with the physiology of the body and that. And then we're talking about going to Mars for a 3-year trip. No way does the science say we support that yet. We have to have a space station, which we have now, but that's going to age and be taken out of commission in 10 years, and they have to put a new station up there too, because you have to have a flying platform in space to understand what it does to the body long term, Because if we're talking long-term stay on the moon or any place else, you have to know our physiology better. And particularly for both man and women and the various nationalities and everything else like that. We have to know much more, which means a lot longer program for science in a laboratory around the U.S. Around the world.
That's what it's always seemed to me is when they explain that, hey, we're gonna get to the moon, and then that's our launching point off to get to Mars. That is a big jump between getting to the moon.
That is, because they're talking about putting storage tanks for propellants and et cetera. I know SpaceX, they're the one that's going to have a couple starships, which they've almost completed a good mission. The first 2 missions failed, okay, but they would say, yes, we learned a lot. All right. Well, they didn't learn a lot yet, okay? They've got a couple more failures, and they're pushing that.
I love they call them rapid RUDs, rapid.
Right. They blew up the pad the first time.
Rapid unexpected disassembly.
Right.
Or something like
we
that.
We learned a lot, they said. The one thing there that is unique to what I had, weight was very critical, and we had hard wires and sensors, heavy sensors and that, compared to what we have today. That was a lot of weight, and you got minimum sensors. Minimum data, and you really have to justify that on your missions and everything else like that. These days, you see the control rooms, nice colors and that, and big screens, everything else, and all the data they have up there, because again, we're into the transistors and the microsensors, everything else like that these days and that. So they have plenty of the data to look at, so I can understand where Musk says, hey, yes, we learn a lot, okay? We wouldn't have learned a lot because we didn't have that many sensors. We had a failure one time, and we were waiting for a couple of days just to get our data back and that to understand, well, where's the problem we had? What was it? And everybody's beating down your throat saying, what's your problem, okay? Tell us about it. Because we're on schedules and that. So it's quite a difference, okay? But
I often think about that when I see these things, and having sat with you and before and talked a little bit while we had lunch that time. When I think about what you think when you see them doing a launch for our astronauts, and it's touch screens in the cabin, and
it's beautiful. Oh yes, we had the black and white little CRTs, okay, with minimal data, and we had to wait on data return and that, and they have instant recording at their fingertips and everything else like that. So
it's very, very interesting. David, do you have anything that?
Yeah, you covered a lot, but
I've been very excited for this interview.
No, it's great. You've covered a lot. Question. So
I still want to say though, we need to go to the moon, I guess, just to understand. But going to Mars and that, it's decades out. And unless we find there's a reason to do it or something, some scientific reason, which we haven't yet. Life, okay?
Yeah.
But even that can be done remotely, okay? First, with fewer dollars, okay, which we're going to have, fewer dollars, because it's a tremendous cost.
So here's my question. We had Coach Pecora on last week, and we talked about teams and talked about, individuals and teams. So I'm going to kind of wrap this into last week. So you're part of the Apollo project. I'm sure you've gotten asked every time you say that, what about Apollo 13? But my question is, Matt had mentioned earlier that this was not just this was a big project. This was a worldwide recognized project. Kennedy said in 10 years we're getting to the moon. I come to work and try to get from one day to the next. What am I doing in 10 years? So I guess my question is, when that happened, it's going to be a kind of a two-part. So when that happened, you had the highs and the lows. What kind of feeling whenever, there's that day when we're finally on the moon? I mean, I know you're an engineer, you're a part of a team, but how does that relate?
Well, we were kind of looking over our shoulders saying, what's next, okay? Is somebody going to start cutting us back? Because we knew, we were talking about it, saying public loses interest fast, and they did.
Yeah.
After the second one, it was, okay. Then we had 13 happen one more time, but it didn't come up to the thing, and everybody's saying, why are we doing that? And, of course, Congress is saying that too, okay, on budgets and everything else like that. and what's your next program? And we really didn't have a next program, Skylab, okay,
Right.
little bits. And this thing about a space shuttle wasn't even formulated and things like that. And but the Congress lost interest in that, and that's what happens. Administrations change. What's the priorities in that? But now, again, even with this lunar, they've had about 4 different starts under different administrations.
Right.
They call it a couple of things, okay? And it's who's going to get in back of it, and why are they in back of it, and for what reasons? And for me, it's not a solid reason right now. Yes, we'd like to go back. We'd love to have astronauts in space. And the number one thing is going to be in the next couple of years is we're competing with China. Because China is there. We had the Russians. At that time, it was a race. And we almost lost the race, okay, as far as bringing moon rocks back.
That was going to be my question.
They had sent a robotic device and crashed a year before on the moon, and it was meant to bring back samples. And that would have brought back the first rocks and said, no, we lost that one too. They brought the first rocks from the moon. And but as it turned out, no, we brought it back. Matter of fact, the same time we landed with Apollo 11, the first landing, they sent another one back, a robotic, and it also crashed. So therefore, they didn't bring the moon rocks back first, okay? We did. So then it says, okay, why are we going after more moon rocks for? We won that race.
Yeah, I was going to kind of...
And that's the only thing we won, okay? It's bringing back rocks, because what else did we bring back? Nothing else.
Yeah.
We didn't find anything that said we should go back.
Right.
It did seem, and David's question kind of made me think about that, is that it would seem like oddly enough, that the biggest motivation to take the next step into a larger universe would be some type of foe trying to do it before the United States.
Right. That's what the Chinese are doing, and they've again, it's a Cold War race again, because they don't speak about their programs and that. We have to find out from our sensitive satellites and everything else like that. And but it's still a Cold War going on, and they have a space station with 3 astronauts up there right now too, their own, and nobody else with them. All right. So they are in a race with us to go back to the moon.
Neat.
But it's not mentioned, though. Yet nobody really mentions it right now.
But in your part that you played, that 13 years, do you ever, what did you do today? Did you ever say I helped put a man on the moon?
Right. Again, I realized too, especially after the 50-year anniversary, all the publications came out and said we're going to do it another time, and we haven't done it yet. But the 50-year anniversary there was 500,000 people. It's 500,000 people around the world supporting the Apollo program at the time of the first moon landing. That includes all the Navy people that are out there in the oceans picking up the people in that, all the telecom people around the world and the different stations we had around the world, and also it was everybody that made a little part on the one piece of the Apollo program, okay? There was, 500,000 people that had touched something or did something. So I was one of 500,000. And right now it's kind of like Tom Brokaw saying, we had that greatest generation in World War II and we're losing all of them. Well, that's a situation for the people who worked on Apollo.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We're losing because I have a lot of faxes, and not faxes, but emails and that up from Houston, my people I know down there saying this person died, that person died. I'm 80, going on 81. I'm as old as the president and still vigorous like the president, but most of my age are not, okay? And many were older when I first came in there by 10, 15 years on, so they're gone. So I am still enthusiastic, though, okay? It's something we ought to be doing because we want to be doing. We can't just stay on this earth.
That's a great sentiment. I had an alumni that was on this show earlier, mostly because, she lives with me, wanted me to ask you, if you were given the chance, they needed, for some reason, come over, Don, we need you, suit up, you're going. Would you have gone?
No, I can't. Like I said, I got nauseous in the back seat of the car, okay? and I got nauseous in the first plane flight, and I had Dramamine, and all Dramamine does is just slows you down and everything else right afterwards. Boy, it's not a pleasure, okay? I would probably have loved it if I didn't have the nausea, okay? Would like to try to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But
motion sickness.
no, I motion sickness stopped me, even before I even went into aeronautics, okay? So
I'm that way in elevators too.
So no, but I hear Musk out there saying I'm going to be the first on Mars, even if I don't come back. Well, he has $1 billion, more than that. Okay, he can do anything he wants to, and he probably will. So
as long as he doesn't get
and first person on Mars may be Musk. Okay, it wouldn't be me though.
Thank you, Don, so much for coming and spending better part of an hour with us. Actually,
Well, I enjoyed it.
I want, the point being made, Don, you make a good point that, that generation's going to be gone at some point. And I think even this little bit of just coming and telling your story on the podcast helps to preserve that for our alum.
Well, I go around to the local libraries the last about 5, 6, 7 years, and I got introduced there by a professor at St. Francis, okay, up here at a Potato Fest. She had a booth, and I talked to her, and she said, "Hey, Don, you can make a presentation, okay? I have students in that. Want to hear from you in that. It's coming on 50 years, and it'd be a nice thing to have." And so I got into that, and I enjoyed the kids and everything else. And particularly in my day, you didn't see any women, you didn't see any people of color or anything else, okay? It was all white male, okay, from the Army, Navy, Air Force, all that kind of thing, too. And we need we have a country, half women, and we're not going to use them? That's no sense at all. They have many ideas, different ideas, which are the strength of science, strength of math, and everything else like that. Different ways to approach things. And to say, no, we're only going to use half of them. Boy, I don't know how we made it to the moon, okay? But they were in the background. I mean, a lot of mathematicians on that, and you saw the one movie, too, for John Glenn and that. But they were in the background, okay? You can't do that. Yeah. You have to have everybody participate. And I love the little girls in that, asking their questions when I make these presentations about Apollo and everything else like that. And said, hey, you can be the first to be on Mars. Go after it, I said. Don't let anybody stop you.
It's fantastic.
Good advice.
Thanks again for coming, Don.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Don.
The Tuck Shop podcast is recorded live on the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown campus. Update your contact information with us by visiting johnstown.pitt.edu/alumni. Connect with us online via Facebook and LinkedIn, or consider donating to the university at giveto.pitt.edu/giveupj.
This has been a production of Quantum Wave Media. Views expressed do not necessarily reflect the opinion of the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown.